Hi, I'm Carolyn Evans-Hammond and welcome to my tasting room. Carolyn's tasting room is where you can taste some exciting wines with me. And today we set you up for the Labor Day long weekend with 4 fabulous wines in a range of styles. A rosé, 2 whites, and a fabulous red. So the flight includes a 2022 Gérard Bertrand Gryblanc Rose from the south of France, the 2021 Paco and Lola Albariño from Spain, the 2022 Eradus Sauvignon Blanc from Marlborough, New Zealand, and the 2020 Alchymia Primitivo from Puglia. So let's taste. The first wine in our flight is a beautiful uber pale rosé from the south of France. It's the Gryblanc Rose from Gérard Bertrand. It's the latest vintage. It's the 2022. So I hope you like it. Pour yourself a glass. Notice the color. I mean, it's so pale. It's beautiful. And notice there's almost like a silvery gray hue. That's because it's actually made with something called Grenache Gris, which is a mutation of Grenache Noir, which is that ubiquitous red wine grape from the south of France. It's a mutation, and this is made with that and a little bit of Grenache Noir. But I think the color is just so beautiful. Little fun fact about this wine, it's one of the best-selling rosés in all of France. So I love it. I love the color, I love the taste, but give it a swirl and a sniff with me. Isn't that beautiful? It's so wispy. It's almost like feathery scents. They sort of nod to aromas rather than, talk about them. Do you get that? Little bit of red berry, little bit of nougat maybe, nuttiness, yes. But you kind of have to tease those out of the glass with each swirl. Little bit of floral notes too, which I like, sort of a violet. White flowers. So lots going on, but they're wispy aromas, which is, an ode to the elegance in the glass, which I like about this wine. So have a sip and let it wash in, and let's just first experience it. Isn't that great? So smooth, so elegant, so vinous. This is not fruity at all. It's not in your face. This is not a cocktail style wine. This is a wine for all those patio lunches you're going to have this weekend. Imagine that. You could pour this with anything at the table. Lovely. Or tapenade or olives, on the dock or on the deck or on your balcony. Love it. So let's taste this technically together. Have a sip. What we're going to do is let it wash in, and we're going to focus just on the tip of the tongue. Now, I know this is a dry wine, but what we're going to do by focusing on the tip of the tongue is see just how dry it is. See whether we're going to be able to detect any sweetness, because that's the best place to detect any residual sugar. So have a sip. There is none, is there? None. Now, I think this whole bottle, this wine has 2 grams per liter. So there's, less than 2 grams in this bottle, which is nothing. It's, maybe a quarter of a teaspoon of that. So it's bone dry. And that's one of the charms of the wine, because bone dry wines never tire the palate. They're actually quenching. They scrape the palate clean, and they're really helpful at the table. So have another sip. We're going to let the wine wash to the sides of the palate, and let's focus on how much our mouth waters. The amount you salivate indicates how high the acidity is. So do that. Pretty mouth-watering, isn't it? When you do that, you notice. You don't notice it when you're just drinking it. And that's because it's so well balanced with the other components. Focus now on the back of the palate and see if you're noticing any heat. We're going to look for alcoholic heat, which would suggest the wine is out of balance. If it's in balance, we won't notice it. Ready? None. I love that. This is, you know, light-bodied, 13% alcohol, but you would never guess because the fruit stuffing blankets the alcohol beautifully so you don't notice the heat. It's just in perfect balance. Such a pleasure to drink. And what I love here is, you know, there's lots of fruit stuffing, but it's not fruity or forward. It's just vinous. That's, you know, that's French for you. So I really like this wine. Last thing we're going to focus on before we, you know, play that game of what are we finding in the glass, all the flavor components, is we're going to focus on the length. So have a sip, swallow, and we'll see how long it lingers on the finish. So still there, still there, still there, still there. We've got length. That's great. Now, this is a wine that sells for around $16 in Canada and about $10 in the US, so it's really good value. Given the length, given the balance, given the elegance, and given the complexity. Speaking of complexity, let's have a sip and see if we're finding everything we found on the nose echoing or rippling on the palate. We might find even more. So have a sip with me. You're getting, I'm gonna see if you get what I get. White cherry, white flowers, nougat, nuts, like raw nut, raw almond, candied nut but dry, seashells, crushed oyster shells. Getting all of that? Especially on the finish, I get that. That's what's lingering. I love this wine. So I think this is a charming wine for patio lunches this weekend. Now, the happy hour wine. This is Albariño. It's Paco and Lola in the fun bottle, and it's the wine you bring out about 5, 6 o'clock when it's happy hour. It's the time you want to splash something refreshing in your glass and transition from day to night. So I think this is the wine. Albariño is a fabulous wine for that. This is bone dry, light body, 12.5% alcohol. So we've gone through the structure in the last one. We're going to follow that in the subsequent wines, including this one. So give yourself, you know, a pour and notice the color. More depth of color for sure. We're looking at a wine here that's definitely yellow or light gold. Very pretty, very clear, very bright. If it's clear, we know it's probably stable. Important. So on the nose, we're looking for cleanliness, clean. Now, what's it smell like? Salted lime zest, maybe? Absolutely. Lime for sure. And there's hints of, you know, fresh bread. You get that? A little bit of that from the lees aging. So this is a beautiful wine to pour like when you're transitioning, when it's early evening, the sun is setting, and you're splashing this in your glass. Now let's have a sip. Bone dry, palate drenching, quenching, refreshing, almost lifts the spirits, really. You notice the sides of your palate, absolutely mouth-watering, wonderful late afternoon quencher. Now have a sip. We're going to just focus on the flavors. Lime squirt, but also lime oil. Are you noticing that? Sort of if you imagine a twist of lime and you twist it and you get that oil going up in the air, that's what you're getting. So nice. And there's other things too. Light illusions of seashell again. This is, you know, there's usually like a salinity in Albariño, and you're getting that. I'm certainly getting it. Are you? Another sip. And also a hint of white pepper. Now this is a wine that's, you know, it's easy, it's charming, mouth-filling, mouth-watering, but it's a kind of wine you can happily serve on its own, or with just, you know, salty finger foods. You know, you could have this with a bowl of potato chips, yes, or a bowl of cashews, yes, or even, you know, prawns off the grill as you're preparing dinner. Now, we're just going to focus on the balance. So Have a sip. We're going to focus on the back of the palate to see if the alcohol is shining through it or showing through it all. This is 12.5, so light-bodied, but you know, wines are out of balance often. We want to see if this one's not. No heat, no heat, just pure refreshment, pure flavor. And that you know, intense flavor lingers forever. This goes on and on. That's one of the things I love about this wine. Now, this is about $25 in Canada and around, you know, 15 or 20 in the US. But I think it's a kind of wine that deserves it because, first of all, it's so fashionable. Albarino is wildly fashionable right now in the wine world and beyond. But it's also got a fun label, and it's a kind of wine that will appeal to everybody from Pinot Noir or Pinot Grigio lovers to Chardonnay lovers to Sauvignon Blanc lovers. And here's why. Pinot Grigio, restraint. You know, this is restraint. There's no wood. Chardonnay, unoaked Chardonnay, is crisp and vertical and mouth-filling. You've got all of that. And Sauvignon Blanc has that lime character. Those who love Sauvignon Blanc will love this because this too has lime. So this is a great versatile wine, and it is perfect for happy hour. And the third wine in our flight is a Marlborough, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. Now, Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand is wildly popular right now. Lots of people love it for good reason. But the reason I chose this one is because it balances old world, you know, discretion or understatedness with new world fruit. So it's this wonderful juxtaposition of those two, you know, points on the map, so to speak. So pour yourself a glass. Notice the color. It's a deep straw hue, which is classic for Sauvignon Blanc. So that's straw rather than yellow. And if you give it a swirl, let's look at the nose. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, it's aromatic, yes, but it's not pungent. It's not too forward. It's not undignified. I love that, but it's wildly complex. To me, I get flint. You're getting flint as well as grapefruit. So it's not just lime. It's, you know, grapefruit. If the lime is there, it's sort of kaffir lime. And I'm getting thyme. Do you get thyme? That dried thyme? I love that. So lots going on in the glass. There's a restraint here, and yet aromatic specificity. It's absolutely articulate, and I love that because that's a mark of quality. And on the palate, let it sweep in. Glossy, cool, beautifully balanced, hangs together really well, and it tastes sort of sphere-like, and yet then it fans out with everything we found on the nose and lingers on the palate. Isn't that great? Now, this is the kind of wine that for me is perfect with grilled fish. Oh, just makes any grilled fish dinner sublime. But it also goes with grilled chicken. It goes with spicy food. Maybe you're into, you know, jerk chicken or something like that. It works magically. So lots of versatility here, but it's definitely a great food wine for those, you know, last grilled dinners, you know, at the cottage or on your patio or even in your backyard, because Labor Day, you know, it calls for that. So let's taste this technically. We'll have a quick sip, focus on the tip of the tongue to see if it's dry or sweet. Bone dry, for sure, and mouth-watering because it's got high acidity. It's Sauvignon Blanc after all. No heat at the back of the palate, and it lingers on the finish. And everything we found on the nose echoes on the palate, arcs, smudges into the finish, and leaves your palate beautifully seasoned. This is, I think it's a really fabulous wine for the money, and I think it's a kind of wine that tastes terroir driven. So if you love Sauvignon Blanc, whether it's from Sancerre, France, or Marlborough, New Zealand, I think you'll love this wine. And the last wine in our flight is a Primitivo from Puglia, Italy, called Alchymia. This is a wine that I think you're gonna love. All of my friends love this wine. So pour yourself a glass, notice the color, notice the depth of color. Now this is a deep dark wine. It's a wine that you'll love if you love big reds. This is 14% alcohol, but it doesn't taste too heavy. It's lifted. More on that in a minute. We'll taste it together. So notice the color. It's opaque in the middle. You can't see your thumb through the center. Give it a swirl and a sniff. Doesn't that take you straight to Italy? Muddled fruit, yes, dark fruit, sort of blackberries, yes, getting that, as well as earthiness, sort of freshly turned, moist black earth. That's something I always associate with Italy is, you know, dark fruit and earth. Dusty cherries. Here it's like black cherries for sure though, blackberries. And there's also a hint of olive. Are you getting that? An underbrush, black pepper. So lots going on in the glass. This is a wine that, you know, if you love Italian reds, this is a great choice. Now, let's have a quick sip and just let it wash in. Delicious, right? Oh, beautiful. You could drink this on its own easily, but it's also fabulous with grilled food. More on that in a minute. So you took a sip. I bet you loved it. Now let's talk about it technically. Focus on the tip of the tongue. Now, does it taste dry to you? Yeah, right? Now let's focus on the tip of the tongue to see if we're noticing any residual sugar. Notice that? It tastes sweet when you sip there. Don't notice it otherwise, but it is. And that's because there is residual sugar. This has about 17 grams per liter, right? Which is a lot for a red wine, but it's so well balanced with all the other components that it just hangs together and it doesn't taste sweet. It just tastes delicious. Now the charm of that and the usability of that is you can pour this with grilled foods that are mopped with those sticky sauces that we all love in the summertime. This is a perfect choice for that. Now have another sip. We're just going to let it sweep in at the sides of the palate and look at the acidity, and this is important. Notice how much your mouth waters. Balances the sweetness, and that right there is why it doesn't taste sweet. Lots of stuffing too, and no heat at the back of the palate, despite it being 14% alcohol. And that acidity keeps everything lifted and elegant and quenching. So this is the kind of wine that's so versatile at the table or, around the campfire when you're skewering hot dogs and burning them in the hot coals. This is fabulous. You can even put ketchup on that hot dog, and the wine is not going to be any worse for the wear. So not a lot of wines like that, and this is why this wine is a charm for Labor Day. So let's look at what it tastes like. Everything we found on the nose, the black fruit, the earthiness, and on the finish, to me, it tastes like you're sucking the pit of a black olive, which I like because it's very savory, old world. It's very wine as opposed to fruit juice. So even though this is wine you can enjoy cocktail style and in very North American ways, like with, hot dogs and ketchup or grilled meat with sticky sauces, it's still savory and charming. And this, I think, is a wine that's fantastic value for money. It costs less than $25 in Canada and the US, and yet it drinks in a charming way that will appeal to everybody, and it lingers on the finish. There's lots of length. I still taste it. Do you? Are you getting also, yes, the olive, but also white pepper, black pepper, and that blackberry, sort of dusty blackberry. Lovely wine. So there you have it, a fabulous flight of 4 wines that will tee you up for the last long weekend of summer 2023. Here's to Labor Day. Which wine did you like best? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe because I'm coming right back with another flight of delicious wines here on Carolyn's Tasting Room so you can drink better and learn how.